These are my AirPods Pros. They cost like 300 Singapore dollars new and I love them. They're compact, have great battery life, absolutely seamless with all my Apple devices, and have excellent noise cancelling. Not to mention with the mismatched ear tips. Yes, my left ear is bigger than my right. I don't know why. They are really comfortable. But they are bloody expensive at 300 plus Singapore dollars. And I only really got them because they were a free gift with a credit card sign-up promotion. It's no wonder then that there is a whole market of budget ANC earphones that are essentially trying to compete with the benchmark itself, the AirPods and the AirPods Pros. And this is one of them. It's the Earfun AirPro 4. And unlike the AirPro 2, which I tested like 2 years ago, that was a $200 plus AirPods Pro competitor for only a little bit less, these are 100 Singapore dollars, which makes it less than a third of the price of the AirPods Pros 2 and less than half the price of AirPods 4s. So I daily drove them to answer two questions. Can they replace my AirPods? And how much will I miss Apple in the process? First impressions, and the build quality does indicate that cheaper price. A little bit. You still get solid accessories, a charging cable and ear tips, that's all you need. But the build isn't particularly inspiring, with the latch having a little wriggle when I do this. The Earfun logo also started peeling off after a couple of weeks of use, and frankly I prefer the old style where they just engrave the logo rather than putting a sticker. But I have to say though, while the plastic doesn't feel as dense and premium as the AirPods Pros, the plastic being matte and having a nice soft touch is quite comfortable to touch and a far better choice than making the plastic glossy like Apple did, which is just a stupid decision on their part. It just hides scratches way better, and no, I'm not getting a case for my AirPods Pros because they're meant to be small. Speaking of size, the earphones aren't all that big. They're definitely bigger than the AirPods and the AirPods Pros, with my main issue with them being the thickness. It's a little thick, so that might be an issue with pocketability, but it's still quite okay and not excessive. Oh, and if you're curious, the latch opens up at a similar drop height to the AirPods Pros, as I would now demonstrate. Is that an excuse to just drop things for the fun of it? I'll let you decide. So physically, it's quite solid, and when it comes to comfort, the earphones are pretty good too. It's bigger than the AirPods, sure, but they're far from excessively bulky, and I find them to be quite secure, whether I'm working out or just sitting. However, if you're the kind of person that likes having wireless earphones in and sleeping on their side, watching a video like this, these earphones do protrude out a little bit more than the AirPods, and I personally think they're not very ideal for situations where you're doing this, and you should look at something else instead. Control-wise, the earphones are a little different to AirPods. They don't have Apple's swipe controls, but they control everything via tap and hold, with one tap on each side increasing or decreasing volume, 2 taps for play pause, 3 taps for skipping forward or rewinding, and a press and hold on the right side activating Siri or whatever voice assistant you have, and a press and hold on the left side switching between noise cancelling, transparency, and normal modes. And that leads me to the topic of noise cancelling, and I have to say, ANC is absolutely a key standout feature of these earphones. The ANC on here are really solid. For $100, this thing cuts out a lot of background noise, and that's mostly what you get ANC earphones for. Sleeping on a plane without having to hear or babies crying, and it does a very good job of cutting that out. There is no weird hiss, no weird whine, and it's a very strong ANC without actually causing any sort of weird headaches or claustrophobia for me. I mean, of course, if you're more sensitive to that pressure feeling from noise cancelling, you might feel it, but for me, it's perfectly fine. It's almost, dare I say, as good as my AirPods Pros, with the main difference being that the AirPods Pros can cut more noises to higher frequencies than the Earfun AirPro 4s. But for the price, it packs an absolute punch on noise cancelling, and I'm guessing this is where they put all the budget in the development of these earphones into. Sound quality, on the other hand, is a little less impressive. Now, it's pretty decent, don't get it twisted, but it's just not as insanely brilliant as the noise cancelling, which I think punches above its weight. Its sound is definitely what I consider mainstream earphone tuning, and it has a very V-shaped sound signature, and I'm not the biggest fan of this. The bass kind of overwhelms the vocals, and the treble does get a little grating for me, being a little bit much. It's not deal breaker level harsh, but it's just not quite balanced, and I personally think that for most people who like a more normal sounding earphone that's more balanced, I recommend downloading the app and using an EQ setting like this when listening to music, as it sounds much better with vocals coming through well after I did this change. I personally really enjoy listening to vocals more because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I also like listening to the voices in the song more so than instrumentals. It also supports all the high-end audio things like LDAC and aptX and all the weird specs, even though I think most buyers of this budget earphone won't care. Detail and clarity of these earphones are solid enough, and the stereo positional sound is pretty okay if you're planning to game on this. And yes, it doesn't have bad latency if you turn on game mode in the Earfun app. It's actually a little feature for low latency mode, so gaming is actually pretty acceptable on these. As for calls, Earfun claims that this has a 6-mic AI algorithm back thing going on, and it sounds fine. Here's a sound test.
And now this is going to be a sound test in a rather quiet room. Do note I'm actually recording all of this through the voice memos app on my iPhone, so it might not be the most ideal and might even sound actually slightly better on a call. I think the mic quality is okay. Okay, so this is a sound test with the AirPods Pro's version 1 in voice memos, and you can have a test of how it sounds and compare between the two. This is a test with a fan on in the background. And now I'm going to turn on the video in the background so you can take a listen. A quick brown fox jumps over the cat, and the cat is lying on my lap. Now here's the sound test with the AirPods with the fan on in the background. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. And then now it's with the video. So this is what the AirPods Pro sound like, but there's a video playing on in the background. The quick brown fox jumps over the cat who's sitting in my lap. Yada, yada, yada.
I think it's alright and can get the job done with an acceptable level of clarity and surrounding noise rejection. Battery life is actually real solid. My dad took it on a trip and it actually lasted him the whole trip, so it's definitely living up to its 52-hour playtime promise. It also does wireless charging as well. As for software, this earphone, as mentioned, has an app, and I actually have to say it's quite a good app. The UI is excellent. It looks straight ripped out of the Apple settings for AirPods. I don't mind because Apple's UI is really good and really solid. And in the app itself, you can tweak noise cancelling, controls, and sound settings easily. Plus, you can set up things like dual device connectivity. So if you want to connect to your phone while connecting to your laptop, it's possible. And it's also where you update the firmware of the earphones. Now, if you're someone who's trying to mess with the EQ like I did to get the sound more balanced and natural and nice, I would recommend you do the EQ setting in the app itself, so it applies across whatever sound source you're playing, rather than in the app that you're using like Spotify or Apple Music, because that only applies to when you are listening to music or audio from that app. Which then leads me back to the AirPods Pros. What do I miss from this going to that? Truthfully, not that much. This thing is less than a third of its price, and after an EQ setting adjustment, I basically didn't miss my AirPods much at all when listening. After all, most of the time when you're using wireless earphones on the go, you just want to cut out these surroundings, and it does that so well, especially for its price range. Connectivity, I would have to say, is the main thing that I actually miss with my AirPods, and that is that these connect absolutely instantly with all my Apple devices, and it's just seamless. By the time the earphones reach my ears, it's already connected to my iPhone or my laptop. Whereas with this, there is a little bit more of a pause and your phone kind of needs a while to connect. Not to say that it's hard to pair or hard to connect compared to the AirPods, it's just not as instant and seamless as the AirPods are, which are just lightning fast. Another thing that I do miss a little bit on the AirPods is the Find My feature. So having the Find My feature is really useful because I can play a sound to figure out where those earphones are. If you're not haphazard like me and careless, then that's not a big deal. But if you're someone who is absolutely going to at some point lose your earphones, Find My feature is a nice to have. But is it worth 200 plus Singapore dollars of extra spend? I find it hard to justify. Now, these are no AirPods Pros, but I think it's amazing that it does so many things really well and solidly, and that for its massive price delta, I have to say that these are some of the best budget ANC earphones that I have ever tested so far. It does everything you need well enough, and for some things that I've stated before, it stands out as way better than the price will suggest, mainly being its noise cancelling, app features, controls, and comfort. As for future improvements with the Earfun AirPro, I really hope Earfun focuses on improving the call mic quality for the next generation, and I would really like to see if they could make this case a little bit more compact. I know they have other models for that, but I think all wireless ANC earbuds should be as sleek as possible because the whole purpose of them is portability. Also, I have to mention the firmware updating for my particular earphones were buggy. I couldn't get it to work, so I was unable to test these earphones on the latest firmware to see if anything was different. But that aside, these Earfun AirPro 4s are excellent value. And for the budget earphone buyer whose main priority is noise cancelling and just comfort and practicality, just cutting out surrounding noise, these absolutely are one of the best choices I've tested in a while. So, good job, Earfun. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Adios.